Thank you for the opportunity to present here today. Last week, a 26-year-old died a gruesome death when he was pulled into an industrial machine. Last year alone, there were 490 fatality claims and over 240,000 reported injuries in Ontario. I'm calling your attention to these grim facts so that we all understand what is really under discussion here today. At its heart, this legislation is about the extent to which we value human life. The bill is the first attempt in 20 years to make significant improvements to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I cannot emphasize enough, therefore, how important it is to get it right. In that regard, sections 4, 5 and 8.2 are extremely troubling to us in that they will lead to the politicisation of the health and safety system. The expert panel recommendations was clear. It called for the new organisation to be headed by a chief prevention executive. Instead, Bill 160 invests the Minister of the Day with those powers and leaves day-to-day life and death decisions captive to the rise and fall of political fortunes and popularity polls. Likewise, investing civil servants with the power to make law and sidestep the authority of the legislature and the cabinet also presents a very real danger to the overall integrity of the system. The government has said that it is trying to address inconsistencies in the application and enforcement of the health and safety legislation. We also have concerns about this issue, but this is not the way to fix the problem. I'm prepared to bring our affiliates to the table and sit down with the Ministry to work out a solution to this issue. We also call your attention to extremely troubling attempts to tie the hands of health and safety inspectors. They are one of the most critical bulwarks against death and injury in the workplace, and imposing restrictions and limitations on them will impede protection for workers. The bill also makes inspectors not competent to be a witness at a hearing on a reprisal complaint. This undermines the intent of the expert panel on the issue of improving the reprisal protection for workers. The expert panel rightfully viewed the issue of reprisals as an extremely serious impediment. I spoke about the young man Justin who was killed last week in an industrial machine. CBC interviewed Vern, a former worker of the company, who says he'd been let go only a month before for raising concerns about numerous health and safety violations. Reprisals by employers happen so frequently and create such a culture of fear that experts point to them as a major barrier to prevention of workplace deaths. More roadblocks have also been thrown in the way of what should be a straightforward communication from the Joint Health and Safety Committee. If you continue to allow the administrative barrier to moving the co-chair recommendations forward, you silence the very people whose information can prevent death and injuries from occurring. Finally, we are recommending that Bill 160 include specific provisions to designate and fund both the occupational health clinics for Ontario workers and the Workers' Health and Safety Centre. It is absolutely critical to us that both of these organisations remain unimpeded for the work that they do. Politicians too often become inured to stats and numbers, but we are asking you to try and connect with even one of these deaths and imagine that that person is a real human being, alive, well, going to work and dying as a result of it. Am I interrupting a conversation over there? Okay. We don't want you to accept the 490 deaths last year as the status quo. There is nothing normal about even one of them, and I'm urging you to view these numbers as the catastrophe that they are. It was utterly devastating when 4 construction workers fell to their deaths on Christmas Eve in 2009 because Metron Construction and its owner, Joel Schwartz, viewed them not as people but simply as an end to a means. This is the reality of too many workplaces. Their deaths in part prompted the ensuing expert panel review. You can appreciate how much is at stake. If these changes are not made to our satisfaction, the Labour movement will not be able to support Bill 160. I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. We'll begin with the fines. This obviously, do you feel that Bill 60 has addressed Section 50 to your satisfaction in any way, shape, or form?
Well, not as it's currently written, it has not. But what we need to see, this is the enabling legislation, what we actually need to see is what will come forward in terms of what will be accepted in terms of the recommendations that was made by the expert panel. If the expert panel recommendations are implemented, it's a huge step forward in terms of the a deterrence against reprisals against workers in the workplace. But as I say, the devil's in the details. Let's see what actually makes it into the legislation flowing from the expert panel review.
Thank you, Mr. Melton. If all training
Yeah, it certainly would. There's a huge concern that we've got in the labour movement that if you leave the powers vested in the minister themselves, we've all seen, as an example, when the Tories were in office, we had a workplace health and safety agency. I was doing a tremendous job on behalf of workers in Ontario, and the ideology of that particular party, who didn't see health and safety of workers in Ontario as a priority, they killed that agency and stuffed the whole question of prevention into the workers' compensation system, which nobody believes in this province has worked effectively ever since. We're afraid that if we vest the powers, as we just talked about a few moments ago, in the minister, then down the road, God forbid would ever be a Tory government in this province, but if there was, that unfortunate situation never happened, we could find ourselves once again where the Minister of the Day starts playing politics with the lives of workers in Ontario, and we'd find ourselves in that situation.
You've been watching excerpts of OFL President Sid Ryan's presentation on Bill 160. Final amendments are due before the end of May, and we are hopeful that they will reflect Labour's concerns. The OFL's full submission and media releases are available on our website at www.ofl.ca.